Welcome to Mighty Banyans on the Bay, the faculty podcast. I'm Alicia Mercado Harvey, Assistant Professor of Spanish, Portuguese, and History at New College. And here are fantastic guests today. They'll introduce themselves. So let's start over here.
Hi, my name is Lucy Duke. I'm a fourth-year student studying political science at New College of Florida.
And I'm David Mikics. I'm a faculty member. I just started here last year. This is my second year at New College, and I teach literature and film.
All right, so welcome. So glad you're here to talk mainly about, well, we're going to talk about you too, but about the Odyssey, right? This new thing that we started exactly the year you came, right? 2024?
Well, it had actually been, the previous year was a sort of, soft rollout of the Odyssey course. And then, so last year, or the year I came, that was the second year of the course.
Right.
And this is the third year.
Right, so we're in the third year. So tell us a little bit about how this got developed.
Well, part of this is prehistory, at least for me. That is, I wasn't around for the planning stages or for the various, the tongue wars over what book should we teach. Some people wanted Homer's Iliad, some people wanted Homer's Odyssey, some people wanted perhaps a third option, but it was the Odyssey that won. And I'm very glad that it won because it's just a terrific poem, thrilling. It's the first adventure story in Western literature. It's on such a big scale. It's like it's an encyclopedic poem. It's about everything, heroism, marriage, cannibalism, what have you, encountering foreigners, being a guest, being a host, taking revenge or not taking revenge, and plenty of other things. And it's so well represented in the tradition. That is, not only vase paintings in the ancient world and various literary takeoffs and riffs on the themes of the Odyssey, but also in the modern world. So if you read Dante or Cervantes or Shakespeare or dozens of other writers, they're all thinking about the Odyssey. So it's such a rich source text, really, for thinking about Western literature or Western culture.
Absolutely. And Lucy, tell me a little bit about your ISP because to give context to our listeners and viewers, so out of this, you develop an ISP, right, with April, which she also works in the Odyssey. Mm-hmm. She's the director of the Odyssey,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So with her and Tanya Combs, who is a music instructor, so how did that develop, the idea of doing an ISP about the Odyssey?
So, as I remember, as I was signing up for my ISP, it said there would be an Odyssey theater course, but I wasn't too sure what that meant. But I wanted to try something new before I graduate. I've never done acting or anything of the sorts before. So I remember the first day of class, my best friend and I, we show up, and I kind of assumed we would be given a script and a role. We would memorize it for the next month and then do the play in front of a bunch of people. And on the first day we got in there and we figured out that we were actually in a devised theater course. So devised theater is kind of where you take a text, and we took the Odyssey, and you take a part of it that you like or a part of it that inspires you, intrigues you, and you just build off of that. And we did that through a lot of improv. I remember the first day of class, we were looking at a photo of Penelope undoing her loom. And honestly, I think that first little bit of improv is what inspired the rest of the course of the class. And so, yeah, we just picked things that we liked, parts of the story. We had to let go of other things that we did enjoy, but you eventually have to focus in on something. And with the 3 weeks that we were given, we met for 5 hours a day. It really got to where we needed to hone in on what interested us completely. And yeah, we learned a lot about the Odyssey, about a bunch of different parts about theater and the history of theater, and it was really beautiful. And we tried to incorporate some of those ancient things into our final play, the masks, and we looked at a lot of the vases and stuff like that. But it really was the devised theater and the improv that brought us to where we got to be for the final production.
Yes, that's fantastic.
So we should set the scene for this, Lucy, because this was a very chilly night,
It was a
unexpectedly
chilly
so,
night.
in January, and a lot of the New College community had turned out to see
Yes.
this devised theater.
Yes, we were welcomed very warmly in the cold night. Yeah.
Yes,
There was a
yes,
lot of
yes.
people there.
And so you were wearing sort of not togas properly speaking, but the Greek equivalent, chitons,
Yes.
and we're all barefoot and doing just very elaborate and at times quite athletic exercises there in the freezing cold, as well as acting through some of the key parts of the poem,
Yes.
the revenge
Yeah.
on the suitors, the reunion of Odysseus and Penelope, and his various temptations by female figures and other things. So it was really impressive, and
Thank you.
it was really one of the most fun nights I've had here at New College.
Thank
Yeah.
you. It was so much fun for me, and I was, of course, very nervous. And then the weather kind of added another layer to it, but if you were there, you kind of know that the weather almost helped the play in a way. There was a couple of really great improv moments, even during the final part, that the weather included. But yeah, we kind of realized that we didn't want to focus on Odysseus. We wanted to focus on Penelope. So I think that was really great. And just kind of the woman's side to the story, just the longing and how many years you spend away from your husband and kind of what that can do to a person. But we made it fun. There was the dance battle, the killing of the suitors and that. So it was a little bit of sadness, a little bit of humor, and I'm glad that we got to incorporate both, because we were wondering how we would go about, do we want this to be just solely a drama or solely a comedy? And I'm glad that the group was willing to incorporate both.
Oh, yes. Well, the poem is both, and
Yes.
other things too. I mean, it is such a human poem. Like your husband comes back after 20 years. Is this the same person? Or what do I have to watch out for? Is it really him? And the way in which Penelope negotiates her situation between there are 108 suitors in her house who are vying
Right.
for her hand, and they've taken over the house, and she and her son have to somehow fend them off. And then at the same time, Odysseus is struggling with various temptations, various conflicts. He almost dies repeatedly, and most of his men die, all of his men die as well in his struggle to get home. So it's really a poem about not only survival, but also about recognition and acknowledgement of one person by another, and what it means to be reunited with somebody. So, these are themes that everyone responds to, I
Right.
think, and you guys put those forward so powerfully
Thank
in
you.
the,
Thank
in the
you.
drama.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about exactly what you're talking about, connecting for the students, because this is a very old text, right? In thinking about today's students, how do you approach that in terms of them connecting with the words and the story?
Yeah, so this is a process because, many students, whether they love to read books or are indifferent to books or actively dislike books, they still, all of them, have to get used to this kind of a text because it's just so big and so digressive. And, there'll be stories woven into one another. And as one of my students said, why are there so many strange names here? Well, they're all ancient Greeks. And you have to learn something about the culture as well. As I mentioned already, the importance of guest-host relationships, the importance of sacrifices to the gods, the presence of the gods, like who are these gods and what are they like and what do they have to do with us human beings? And so all of these aspects of the poem you have to get across through, well, partly through visual art, through showing ancient representations of what life was like then, but also kind of setting the scene. One of our lectures in the course is by an archaeologist who teaches here, an anthropologist / archaeologist,
Oh, Fred.
Professor Fred Perrone, and he talks about his excavations in Malta, where he has found traces of the Mycenaean Greeks, the Greeks of Homer's day, who went as far west in the Mediterranean as the island of Malta after the Battle of Troy, which, by the way, actually happened. So, the Trojan War
Historical,
was a
yeah.
reality. It was not fought over a woman named Helen, That's extremely doubtful, but it was a trade war, but it really happened. And so we have the site of Troy, we have the armor of the Greek warriors. So one of the exciting things about reading this poem is the realization that it's all real, and that these people who lived so long ago are recognizable to us for all their differences. And figuring out the differences and also figuring out the kinship between us and them is an important part of the course.
Right. And for you, Lucy, was it intimidating at any point to put such classical text into theater?
I would say yes, because you don't want to do it any injustice, especially as kind of a newbie to theater. I had never done it. My best friend had never done it.
That's hard to believe. You guys were like naturals at it. You
Thank
didn't miss
you.
a beat.
We had a lot of practice. We were together, again, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 3 weeks straight before the performance. So at the end, I felt very confident that, when people saw it, I think they thought, that is the Odyssey, or that's at least a little representation of it. But I think the intimidating part going into it, again, not knowing necessarily what the class was before I knew that it was theater making and not we're performing the entire Odyssey, was the length. How do I replicate the entire book into one small play? But we didn't have to do that. So it made it a lot less intimidating.
Right.
So.
It was just a piece
Yes.
of the Odyssey. So I wanted to have a little time also to talk to you about what you do at New College. So David, tell us a little bit about the classes you teach. What you teach English literature. So
Yes, yeah, English and American literature and some world literature as well. I described my interests some years ago as have brain, will read, and teach. And one of the great things about New College is that we're called upon to do so many different things. So, for example, right now I'm doing a tutorial with a student on Freud and Bloomsbury, Virginia Woolf, and other writers. And we read a lot of Freud and a lot of those novelists. And I'm also doing a tutorial on Italian neorealist cinema. So it's not just literature, but I'm also teaching a course on the modern novel, Henry James, Virginia Woolf, and Ralph Ellison, and so I teach various courses that mix and match film and literature in, I think, interesting ways. So it's really a great place, and what I especially love is the one-on-one character of the instruction here, that a student will come to me, a very ambitious, talented student with an idea for a tutorial or for an ISP, and it's irresistible, really, because, even though I feel like I have so many things to do, and I write as well as teach, but, it's a lot of very exciting intellectual exchanges among teachers and students here.
Yeah, you're a very productive scholar as well, since you mentioned writing. So what are you working on right now?
Oh, okay. So I write monthly pieces for Tablet Magazine, which is a magazine of Jewish thought and culture, but also other things as well. And so my last book was about Stanley Kubrick, the filmmaker.
Ooh.
I just wrote a piece about him for Tablet, and I wrote a long piece about the history of Hollywood for them as well. And so what am I working on now? I'm working on a number of different things, but at the moment I'm writing a piece on, on the noir novelist Jim Thompson, who was whose work you may know, a hard-boiled novelist of the mid-20th century who wrote a very terrifying book called The Killer Inside Me, as well as other classics. But I know you, Alicia, are a devotee of the form, the crime novel, yes.
Yes, I'm currently teaching a course, my detective course. So, yes, that sounds fascinating. It sounds like we need to talk more.
Oh, yes, definitely.
So, Lucy, you're graduating this semester. So, tell us
Yeah.
about the experience of going through your last semester at New College.
It's definitely bittersweet. I wish I could kind of start all over again and experience everything for the first time. But it's been really great. I'm taking a lot of really great classes to finish out. A really interesting tutorial with Dr. Ellis on complexity. It's helping me complete my thesis. So it's nice getting to finally do the tutorial. I've always wanted to do it. Got around to doing it. It's been a really great, rewarding experience. something that I wanted to go learn, and now I'm learning a lot about it. I do miss Spanish class. However, you have to pick and choose. Like, I did need a few more courses to finish out, so I had to give up a few fun ones like that. But it's been really great, and I think that honestly, the best class that I've taken, that was, you know, of the ISPs that I've done, would probably be the Odyssey course. I'm so glad that I got to finish out with that one, because it really was something where I'm putting myself out there. I'm so scared to do it. And I know that once I graduate, I'm going to look back on this semester and be like, wow, I did it, and it was so much fun, and I ended on a really high note. So,
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is a really good showcase of what you can do, putting together. That's why I thought this was so cool. ISP, which is something unique that we do at New College, and the Odyssey, which is a new thing that every student at New College has to do now. And sounds like you're doing a great job with like putting all the students through reading this really monumental text. That's as I was asking you, how is the experience? How do you do it? And it sounds like it's going really well. I've had feedback from students too, that entered with this thing of, oh, I have to do this. And then they're like, oh, this book is so cool. So it's just great to see that process,
Oh, yeah. So as the way we teach it, or the way many of us teach it, there's a lecture which is shared among all the students, and then weekly small section meetings with various instructors who are involved in the course. And so there are weekly responses that students write, and of course there's a lot of discussion in the sections in class, but they also do some fun final projects. Like, for example, this term I've had a student do magic cards based on the Magic game, and those cards were based on characters and events in the Odyssey. I've had students do Minecraft projects, based on the Odyssey, and very ambitious little films based on the Odyssey, and fan fiction. So there are a lot of creative routes that we take through the poem, which is one of the fun things about the course.
Right. So in the structure for where you describe, they have to attend a lecture, they have to do discussion sessions, and at the end, they choose to do a project that they're interested in, right?
Yeah, so it could be a painting of some character in the Odyssey, and for something like that, I ask them to look at the very rich history of visual art, so that, for example, if they're doing a painting of a character like Circe or Penelope or Calypso, there have been so many great, visual representations of these characters. So, I want them to immerse themselves a little bit in the tradition of this, as well as doing their own thing. So that's a nice balance, in those final projects.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like a really great class. So I invite everybody who wants to come to New College to check this out, prospective students to come and sit also. They could come and sit at one.
Yes,
Yeah, come and sit and see what's all about. And you can always write to David to ask about, if you have any questions. And I thank you both for coming and talking about what you do at New College and about this fantastic class.
thank you for having us.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Of course. And until next time, you can write us questions, write comments on the YouTube channel. And until our next podcast, I hope you have a great week.